Excellent. Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 18th, 2022, and this is the regular meeting of the Governing Board of the Litchfield Elementary School District. This meeting is hereby called to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me if you are able. You may be seated. Please join me now in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Next item of order on our agenda is recognitions and presentations, which is information only and will be presented by Director Nuanez.
President Moran, members of the board, Superintendent Gunning, and members of our Litchfield community here and watching online. I come before you tonight to celebrate one of our departments that has persevered through many challenges. From driver shortages that had the director and supervising driving buses to unexpected road closures that required on-the-spot rerouting, our transportation department, led by Director Nathan White and his tremendous staff, have met these challenges head on. Our bus drivers, for a lot of students, are the first people they meet from our district, the beginning of the day, and the last ones they meet at the end of the day. So these are very important people. They keep them, they greet them happy, and they leave them happy. And most of all, they transport them safely to and from our schools. So for their unwavering passion to serve and safely transport our students, we celebrate the Litchfield Elementary School District Transportation Department. We could get Mr. White, come up here. Can we take a quick picture with you?
I would like to add to Director Nuanez's congratulations to the Transportation Department and offer my thank you and appreciation for Director White's leadership, as well as all of the student transporters and transporter aides that you have on your staff. We appreciate all of the hard work and your dedication to getting our students to their classes. We appreciate you. Next up on our agenda is item 2B, tax credit presentation, which will be presented by Executive Director Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, colleagues, and community, thank you for joining me tonight for a report out on the district's tax credit program for fiscal year 2022. Okay. Tonight's presentation aligns with the district's strategic plan to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school finance and funding, as well as student success. Why is this not? We're going to manually change the slides here so we can keep going. So go ahead. Arizona's tax credit program was passed into law in 1997 and provides individuals with the ability to claim a non-refundable tax credit for certain fees paid to Arizona public schools for qualifying expenditures. Tax credit contributions are limited to $200 for those filing their taxes singly or as head of household, or up to $400 for married taxpayers that file jointly. Tax credit donations have strict eligibility requirements. You can see on the slide the questions schools must answer in order to use tax credit funds for an expense. For example, this activity must be sponsored by the school, be for enrolled students, be optional and non-credit, supplement the district's educational program, and if a fee has been approved by the governing board for the activity, it must be able to be waived by site administration. Change slide, please. Tax credit donations can also be used for character education programs. Character education programs have to cover at least 6 of the character traits on the slide. Change slide, please. There's also temporary allowability to be used for capital items related to extracurricular programs or character education. This expansion of eligibility is only available until June of 2024. Change slide, please. This slide shows the tax credit activity for the 2022 fiscal year. At a high level, you can see that the district brought in $129,000 in tax credit donations and spent $145,000 of tax credit funds. The largest spending areas were for student clubs, special areas such as music, band, choir, fine arts, and drama, as well as athletics. I think it's important to talk briefly about how these monies are actually spent. When a donor donates tax credit funds, they have the opportunity to restrict it to a specific allowable use or donate it as unrestricted. Site councils are directly involved in working with site administration to allocate undesignated tax credit funds to areas that would best support the school. Next slide, please. Looking at a broader time horizon, we can see the district's tax credit revenue and during the pandemic. Tax credit spending also declined, primarily in 2021, due to less opportunity for extracurricular tax credit spending, again, due to the pandemic. Next, let's look at some examples of what the spending typically consists of. Next slide. At elementary schools, field trips are typically for larger trips such as BizTown, Math and Science Camp, outdoor centers, and the zoo. Club expenses can vary depending on the club, but common clubs include tennis, drama, yoga, dance, Odyssey of the Mind, chess, and others. Fine art expenses can include curriculum and additional supplies for fine arts activities that happen outside of the school day. And character education expenses can also occur as described on the slide. Next slide. Spending middle schools were similar to elementary with the addition of athletic expenditures. Next slide. I think there was one in between there. Thank you. Parents and community members are informed of tax credit donation opportunities through school newsletters and the district website. Donors can mail checks to the district office, donate at their child's school, or pay electronically through a link provided on our homepage. District employees may also contribute through payroll deductions. Approximately 20 employees are donating through those payroll deductions. Next slide. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Executive Director Vaughn. I do have a couple of questions. When we look at slide 6 that has basically the beginning balance, the revenue for the year, the expenditures, and then the ending balance, my question is related to that ending balance. Do we have a guideline in place to dictate spending of those balances, and who is responsible for determining how much is too much of a carryover, how much is too little? Do we offer assistance to the principals or site councils kind of with those items, those decisions?
Yeah, so my understanding is that historically that's really been at the site level and with the site councils. After preparing this presentation, it certainly opened my eyes to some opportunity to both invite some collaboration across schools, insofar as some schools seem to be more apt to using their tax credit than others. And so I think there's an opportunity where, utilizing that sort of professional learning community model that we see across our organization, getting some of those principals together to have some discussions on best ways to use the tax credit. Certainly in this presentation tonight, I highlighted some high-level ways that different schools are utilizing the tax credit. And so this can certainly act as a beginning of that conversation with site administrators. But historically, it has this funding source has been primarily at the site level, which truly is the intention of the tax credit program.
Yes, I agree that is the intention. And I agree that I think additional education is warranted for our principals to know what the options are for them to use, and potentially for some of the principals who are more active in not only recruiting parents and community members to give to their schools, which we know there's some disparities there based on these numbers, but also in the programs that they utilize those for. Because oftentimes, and I've worked on these tax credits for 15 years. That's the main reason that I initially got involved in the district, was a meeting that I had with Dr. Lean 15 years ago about tax credits and how come we didn't have more. Because as a CPA, I thought, this is a no-brainer. Why isn't every employee doing the deductions? And then I was educated on why it's not quite as easy to help folks understand that. But oftentimes, if we have a program that a parent or a student wants to participate in, then that will spur a first-time participation, and then that will help that taxpayer, once they see how it works, even though it sounds too good to be true, that it actually isn't. So I would definitely encourage information on that, and maybe be able to share best practices with some of our schools about the program, because it really is a win-win. And I would encourage all taxpayers to take a look at it. And even if you don't have kids in school, I encourage my own clients to participate by wherever their heart might be. If they were in the band in middle school, give to the middle school band, give to your local school. If you're into character ed, then give to that. If you love field trips, give to a trip to the zoo. So I think there's a place that everybody can find to support these great programs, and we sure could use the funding. Any other board members have questions on tax credit?
Just had one question. Remind me, we were talking about the carryover funds and ending balance. Remind me, is there a time period in which they have to spend those funds, or is it just as the needs arise over a period of years, school years, et cetera?
As the need arises, there is nothing where if this money isn't used in a certain time period that the schools would lose access to that money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I remember that being the case that there, some, in my experience, whether it's PTO or site council or working, with the leaders at my individual elementary schools, saving up for larger things that you might want to do. So sometimes you would pool the funds over a number of years in order to be able to support specific clubs or programs or whatever, but also sort of balancing the being mindful of the students that are providing and families that are providing the funding today. We want to make sure that they're getting the benefit of that funding today and not, 4 or 5 years from now. So there's a sweet balance somewhere in there, and I'm sure that principals are finding that. But anyway, thank you very much. It was a good presentation.
Yeah, I have a question. The money from the digital learning and the white tanks, what's going to happen to that money? I would assume the white tank center, the money would just stay there and
So the White Tanks money will stay there. The Distance Learning Academy, I'm sure you're asking because we no longer have the Distance Learning Academy. So the rules of the tax credit program state that if a program, whether that's a school or arts or one of the restrictions ends, that after 2 years, that money can then be reassigned to another school. And so we would have a couple of different options on how best to do that. We could look at where those students that did attend Distance Learning Academy ended up attending, at least for those who stayed with us. But we effectively have to wait until that 2-year waiting period is up so that we can then reallocate those funds to another school.
And then one more question. The money that's earmarked for specific programs, how do we tell that we can't tell that's not designated on here? Let's say a parent wants it to go to band. We can't.
Yeah, so the slide is designed to just show expenses. It's not showing where the ending balances are designated. I certainly could provide that in a update to the board.
But we're required, that money is required to be used specifically for that.
Yes, sir. And we do track it that way in our accounting system. I just did not prepare the slide.
Okay. If
Yeah.
you just send us an email or some percentage, how much of this money is actually earmarked? And how much is school discretion?
Sure,
I think that'd be interesting to find out.
sure.
So I have a question about if people donate money, if they just want to donate $400 if they're married or $10 for an individual person to our district and they don't care what school it goes to. Can you explain the process for how we handle that?
I'm actually not aware of how the district has historically handled that. Wendy Taylor, can you provide some insight?
Sorry, I just wanted for people to know, because there are people who don't have kids in our
Sure.
schools, but just want to, have tax benefit.
Yeah.
And also help our schools. So if they can know how they can donate without specific school.
Sure.
Year, maybe Rancho Santa Fe, and the next year Corte Sierra. And so we designate a school and they get all of the like undesignated funds that come in, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
For clarification, Board Member Honak or anyone who might be at home who didn't hear the beginning of that statement, the district rotates a chosen designated school for undesignated donations, meaning donations that come into the district that a specific school is not designated to. And they rotate a Title I school each year and provide those, because Title I schools historically receive significantly lower credit contributions. Board Member Honak, do you have any questions on the tax credit presentation?
No, I got that. Thank you.
Board Member Honak?
I answered and said that I heard all of that. Does anybody hear me out there?
Hello?
Yes, I hear you now, Board Member Honak. Do you have
Okay,
any
well,
questions on the
I
tax
did
credit
the same
presentation?
talk as I did before, so somebody is turning off my sound.
Thank you, Executive Director Vaughn. Were there any other questions? Great. Then we will move on to the next presentation, item 2C, which is the 2021-2022 Maintenance and Operations Override Update, also presented by Executive Director Vaughn.
All right. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight for a report out on the district's M&O override program for fiscal year 2022. Tonight's presentation aligns with the district's strategic plan to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school finance. Arizona revised statute requires each school district that has an override program to hold a public meeting between September 1st and October 31st to provide an update on the programs supported through the override. Tonight's presentation is designed to meet that statutory requirement. This slide shows the usage of the override in fiscal year 2022 and projected usage in fiscal year 2023. As you can see on the slide, approximately 2.9 million was used for teacher and staff pay. About 40,000 was used for recruiting and retaining effective staff. 2.9 million was used for special area program staff. 2.9 million was used to maintain staff for a total of 5.6 million used to maintain over those two types of staffing. 778,000 was used for district nurses and about 140,000 was used for athletics. The slide also shows projected usage during the fiscal year 2023. I would like to now dig in a little deeper into the usage over fiscal year 2022. In fiscal year 2022, the override supported 92.5 full-time equivalent positions completely and contributed at least partially to the compensation of 1,003 employees. To clarify the difference between these two figures, full-time equivalency counts part-time positions as only part of a position. For example, if you have two positions working 20 hours per week, those two positions combined would count as one full-time equivalent position. Whereas the second statistic looks at how many different people were compensated from the override. The full-time equivalent positions paid from the override include 45.5 FTE of special area programs focusing primarily on PE, music, and art, 32 FTE for focused intervention programs, including 15.5 FTE for instructional coaches, 7 FTE for student advisors, and 9.5 FTE for behavioral supports, as well as 15 FTE for nurses, one at each of our schools. The M&O override also provides substantial compensation to certain groups. The amounts on the slide are additional compensations these employees receive directly from the override, and call out on their paychecks coming from the override. Our teachers receive $2,950 per year related to service providers, including occupational therapists, physical therapists, psychologists, speech pathologists, receive between $2,930 and $4,710 per year. Instructional coaches receive $2,971 per year. Student advisors receive $3,311. Behavior coaches receive $2,971 per year. Reading specialists receive $2,915 per year. These amounts assist the field in being competitive with surrounding districts. Approximately 90% of the override for 2022 was spent between the positions previously discussed and this additional compensation. The remainder of the override was spent on certified and classified raises and compensation, athletic stipends, and costs to recruit and retain staff. Moving beyond the financial figures for a second, I would like to recognize the hard work of our team members who are supported by the override. In the 2021-2022 school year, our school nurses addressed nearly 40,000 office visits, including 6,300 total visits for daily medication. Having support of our wonderful nurses on campus is a great help to our schools. Additionally, our behavior coaches and student advisors provided one-on-one intervention to over 500 of the district's vulnerable students that help them develop skills that need to be successful in the classroom. These one-on-one interventions were on top of the work they do on a wider scale, supporting teachers and students with increased discipline concerns more broadly, all with the goal of decreasing behavior concerns to allow for increased learning. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Do any board members have questions on the override update?
I have one question. I'll keep it to one question. The 15 nurses, are those, I know probably asked this question before, are those registered nurses, RNs?
Some of them are RNs and some of them are licensed, or they're LPNs.
LPNs?
Yeah.
In any of the schools, do we have a aide in addition to a nurse, or just a nurse by themselves at the site? In other words, what happens if the nurse is ill or has to go on emergency leave? What support do we have?
We have substitute nurses as well. So
Okay.
just like we do like a sub pool for teachers, we do for nurses as well.
Okay. And then my last part of the one question I said, promised I'd ask is these are all district FTEs. They are not contracted.
Correct.
They're FTEs, district.
District.
Okay. That's it.
Any other board member questions on the MNO update? Excellent. Thank you, Executive Director Vaughn. We will now move on to the bond update, which will also be presented by Executive Director Vaughn.
Right. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight for a report out on the district's bond program for fiscal year 2022. Tonight's presentation aligns with the district's strategic plan to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school finance. Arizona revised statute requires each school district that has a bond program to hold a public meeting between September 1st and October 31st to provide an update on the program supported through the bond. Tonight's presentation, just like the override presentation, is designed to meet that statutory requirement. The district has received voter authorization, or last received voter authorization to sell bonds in 2014. That authorization was for $35 million. The district finished selling those bonds in 2021. Through June 30th, the district has spent $28.1 million to 35 bonds. Multiple categories, including remodel of existing schools, new school construction, and remodel of administrative facilities. On the slide, you can see the spending of the bond in these categories through the end of last fiscal year. Of particular note is the White Tanks Learning Center, where $1.6 million of bond funds supported that construction last year. This slide shows the remaining bond categories, including operational and administrative construction and pupil transportation. In 2022, the district did purchase a new special education bus. In 2022, the district's bond funds were primarily spent to support the construction of the district's White Tank Learning Center. You can see some progress photos on the slide. It's coming along and actually looks like a building now, so that's good. The district also purchased a new special education bus in 2022 with bond funds. And again, you can see it on the slide. The next couple of slides will highlight some historical construction projects. For example, here you can see that the 2009 bond and other sources assisting in the building of Verado Heritage, which opened in 2015. This slide highlights some additional historical projects, including Palm Valley and Western Sky roof replacements in 2019 that were supported in large part by School Facility Board funding. This year, the district also supported a large roof access project from capital funds. Looking forward, the district has the completion of the White Tanks Learning Center that will be supported primarily from bond funds, Palm Valley Cooling Tower, which will be fully supported by School Facility Board grants, and fencing at Verado Middle School, which will again be supported by our bond program. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Do any board members have questions on the bond update?
I don't have any questions, but I'd just like to say thank you. This is sort of my favorite time of the year when we actually get to see, we see these big numbers and we see how much things cost and we feel the stress of finding a way to pay for it. And we appreciate all of the community support and allowing us to pass these bonds and seeing these things sort of come from the ground up and new buses and new schools and all of that just, makes me extremely proud of the financial discipline that we've had in the district over the years to be able to provide these things year after year to our district. So thank you for allowing our community to see all of this.
I just want to say that as a parent who gets to drive by the White Tanks Learning Center, the new school they're building, because we go to Corte a lot, it's awesome to see the progress that's happening there. It's unfortunate that we've hit some hiccups along the way because like everybody with supply issues and stuff, but it's really great to see the progress that they're making over there. The kids are super excited when they see it. And I'm so excited for those kids to have their campus when we're able to get this up and done for them so they can have their school.
Board Member Honak, do you have any questions or comments on the bond update? Board Member Honak, do you have any questions or comments on the bond update? Okay, then I would like to actually take a brief recess so that we can ensure that our technology is working appropriately for Board Member Honak to participate before we move on to our community opportunity for comment. We will be back in approximately 3 minutes.
Still there. Shouldn't be there anymore. Yeah, it's still there. There's nothing. What do we do to shut this off? I would have to end the Zoom.
President Moran, give us some.
It's plugged out. But it wasn't plugged in. And make another one.